This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
How about Turner Toadies?
Oh, for the Inside the NBA fan club that we're in?
As opposed to the Insiders?
Yeah.
Turner Toadies isn't bad because it doesn't really name the show, but the show that's, the whole bit is they develop their chops on Turner. And again, the alliteration's king on this program, so I don't mind Turner Toadies for those of us who are quite protective of the Inside the NBA brand and want to be sure that the evil power brokers at ESPN don't mess with it and somehow find a way to sully it. We'll keep that under consideration.
I think they're going to be okay on ESPN.
I hope so.
I don't think they're going to mess with it too much. That's what my gut tells me. Let's talk Twins. They are losing today 14-3 right now. Doesn't look good for them today. They won last night, but may have lost the war. Because as we mentioned 24 hours ago, Pablo Lopez left the game 2 nights ago with some shoulder discomfort. At the time, he thought, let's just be cautious. Let's just make sure everything's okay. I feel pretty good. And he still feels pretty good, but he's going to be out for a while, possibly 3 months. A grade 2 strain of the teres major, a muscle that attaches to the scapula in his shoulder. He said something yesterday along the lines of, when he was conveying how he was feeling, that he did like 10,000 lat pull downs. That's what it feels like. It's a soreness there. You're a big lat pull down guy.
All my life.
Do you go more wider grip?
It's a story of my life.
Yeah, wide grip or a little narrow? Or do you like to mix it up to keep the activations guessing?
Always narrow.
Narrow. Got it. Okay. So he's going to be out. The timeline is 2 to 3 months. And that's the same injury that Joe Ryan had last year that basically ended his season because it happened later in the season. So the Twins will have, optimistically, to get to at least August without their number one starter and perhaps longer.
Not good. Even if, we like our pitching rotation without him, it's a devastating blow for a team that I think we all agree, whatever they are, and right now they have the 3rd best record in baseball. Their chance to stay afloat has more to do with very good starting pitching and a good bullpen than it does with counting on a lineup that can go 2 or 3 days scoring 1 run each of those days, and then they score 10 runs 2 straight days, right? In terms of consistency, it's going to be more likely provided by the pitchers. So losing your workhorse, the guy who's really been an outstanding acquisition since he was brought over in the Arise trade, which was controversial at the time, being out for that length of time is, I think, nothing short of devastating.
After spending the last week and change on the road, the Twins return home tomorrow night to take on Toronto. It's a 6-game homestand, 3 with the Blue Jays over the weekend before the Texas Rangers come here next week. Last night on the Fan, you heard a honey of a ball game. The Edmonton Oilers got out to a 1-0 lead. Florida scores 3 straight. Then Edmonton gets 2 back to tie it at 3. It goes to overtime. Leon Draisaitl gets the goal on a pass from Connor McDavid, and
Who
Edmonton.
else?
Yeah, McDavid's pretty good. He's fun to watch.
He's not Gretzky, though. Even Louis was kind of like almost understanding the comparison. Come on. I mean, look, I'm the hockey ambassador. You're not messing. Well, that's true. You're not messing with Gretzky. Sorry, you're just not. Nobody's messing with Gretzky.
4-3 was the final last night, so Edmonton takes a 1-0 lead in that series. It's absolute chaos in Canada at the moment, and tomorrow night is game 2, a game you can hear right here on The Fan.
Yeah, it was, again, I think when the visitors went up, was it 3-1?
Yeah.
I think they had like 5 shots on goal and 3 goals. It was an odd sort of deal early in the game, and then obviously they scored. How late did they score the tying goal to make it 3-3?
I don't know specifically, but it was late. Yeah.
And then we went deep into overtime number 1 for the winner. Correct?
Yeah. I just had to switch tabs here.
Sorry.
You caught me. I'm Dean Blevins. I didn't expect you that quickly, Coach. I'm sorry. Where did I want to go? NBA Finals tonight. You will not hear that game on the Fan. Let me pull up, if I can, the most recent betting line. The Oklahoma City Thunder in Game 1 tonight against the Indiana Pacers. Do you know the betting line? Do you know what they're favored by?
Tonight's game?
Yes.
I'm going to say... For Game 1 you're talking about, not for the series?
For tonight.
I'm going to say 11.
Wow, you're pretty close. ESPN Bet has them at 9.5-point favorites. Seems like a lot for a finals game, but they kill everybody at home.
It is a lot.
So I guess that's right. And they've been on OKC.
They have. They've been accurate.
They've been pretty accurate. Yes. I'd have to imagine if you bet the Thunder. So Game 1 tonight at 7:30 with the booth that everybody loves. Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Richard Jefferson. Think about doing that game tonight. Like, I'm sure they get all kinds of social media stuff like during the season.
Yeah.
When you're at ESPN, that's just part. Think about what we get. Feels like a lot negative
compared to
think about when the whole level, country. And I'm not happy to say that I've contributed to some of that, maybe during the Wolves-Thunder series, but...
Yes, you have.
Think about that article dropping, and then you do have to be a pro. I mean, you do have to have thick skin to go, well, we're going to do the game.
Yeah.
Whatever happens after the season, we've got this series, and so they get to do their little on-court stand-up tonight, knowing that most of America is ready for the next iteration of the booth.
That's true. That's very, very true, Davey. They're under maybe more even siege. At some point, it becomes overkill a little bit, but
yes,
like I said, I was glad people wrote about it. I think it was Marchand at The Athletic, just because what it reminded me of was like, I haven't even been thinking about it for a long time, and I think it's because I've given up on it. That's the scary part and that's what I think should scare ESPN. I don't think there's a lot of that much savagery. It's almost like people have just resigned themselves to the fact that we're not going to get anything extra from the crew the way we can when we really love the chemistry between 3 parts, where the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts, and that's a little bit what we're fighting. On the series itself, look, I like a lot of people. I am very curious to see what the Pacers can do with the challenge, because I think that's what the series is about, right? Can this team be solved? Do the Pacers represent a different kind of approach and team that actually might make it more interesting and more challenging for Oklahoma City? That's the peg, really, to me, of this entire series, right? That's what those of us who are going to watch, at least early, that's what we're curious to find out, whether there's enough, that there's enough unorthodox approach from the Pacers that they might actually be able to carve out an existence in this series and give Oklahoma City some stuff to think about.
More on that series about 20 minutes from now with Richard Pitino, the Xavier basketball coach, at 5:30. Twins do go final. They lose today, so their 3-game winning streak is snapped. They are 34-28. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. That, according to our guy, .com Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, and others, broke the news a little bit earlier this afternoon that A-Rod plans to fly to Pittsburgh and sign a 1-year contract with Mike Tomlin and that historic organization, the Steelers.
Again, is it a long shot? Yeah, I think it is. But desperate, you think of the Steelers and you don't think desperation. You think that's beneath them. But that's kind of the reality I think they face here. And I'm guessing what they're betting on is the possibility they can get one solid year, maybe catch lightning in a bottle in the AFC from a quarterback who had to be a little bit humbled by what he individually did and what his team did in New York last year. And maybe they feel like their infrastructure is good enough that they can build him up a little bit. And maybe they're going to say to him, we do not want you to throw the ball 75 times a game like in the old days. And so they're taking a risk I think largely because they don't really have that many good alternatives. Fortunately for the Vikings, they had one. The kid who's already being compared to two of the greatest AFC quarterbacks in the league.
Yep.
And he hasn't even thrown his first pitch or delivered his first pitch in a regular season game.
One that's been to a Super Bowl, and has Josh Allen won an MVP yet? If not, he's been close,
Certainly,
right?
Yeah, could have.
Yeah, who's been at the top of the league for a really long time. One other quick NFL note, former Gopher wide receiver Rashad Bateman signed a contract extension today with the Baltimore Ravens, 3 years, $36.75 million and $20 million guarantee for their guy, Rashad Bateman. So there you go.
Gopher season's not that far off, by the way.
It's not.
I'm sure you know that better than I.
I think Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas, I think I check in for my flight in like 49 days or something. It's crazy.
Is it time for the hockey community, especially in Canada, to apologize to the game of basketball? We'll explain next.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Richard Pitino is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Lots to get to with him, including his own connection to the NBA Finals. That's a pretty interesting story. For the record, Josh Allen is the reigning National Football League most valuable player. Josh Allen that was his first win. I think he could have won it before, but he did get it this time, and that was, I think, most people agreed, pretty richly earned. Did you see the update today on the Ishbias buying the Chicago White Sox?
Well, I did. I saw the headline that it's a long-term investment partnership.
That's what I want to get to here. As I understand it, this is with Justin Ishbia. Reinsdorf has reached an agreement that here's the way it's set up. Between the years 2029 and 2033, Jerry Reinsdorf, the current owner, will have the option to sell the controlling interests to Ishbia. After the 2034 season, Ishbia will have the option to acquire the controlling interest. So this is more of a slow cook than the Timberwolves purchase.
Right.
And so what I think, if you're a Twins fan that wants the Twins to be sold, why this is so devastating is this Ishbia had expressed some interest in the Twins. Then that went away because he's building like a $1 billion home on the North Shore in Chicago.
Yep.
And he said, no, I if I can get the White Sox, I'd rather get the Chicago team because I spend so much time there. But isn't there a part of you that says, but you might have been able to have control of the Twins quicker?
By like 4th of July.
By the 4th of July this year, as opposed to waiting as much as, what do we say, 2033?
Yeah. Oh, is it 3? I thought you said 4 even. 2000,
actually, technically 4, yeah. So, because, Reinsdorf may do this like Glenn Taylor and say, yeah, I might sell you it, I might not. Will Reinsdorf, even be alive then? I don't know. But this is 2025, and this gives Reinsdorf another, basically, 8 years to decide whether he actually wants to sell controlling interests. And it's not till 2034. So 9 years from now, when Ishbia can say, no, it's time now. I want the team. And that's quite a slow cook compared to what might have happened here. So to me, that's got to be very disappointing for Wolves fans. And it is fascinating because you'd think if you're one of the Ishbias, you got all the money in the world and you like having these toys, you wouldn't want to wait. Right. So that maybe the decision would be, well, I'd rather go to Chicago because I've got I've got connections there, I've got a home there, but more important is I want to own a team faster, and if I can own a team, 10 10 years quicker, then I'll go ahead and do it with the Minnesota Twins. But that obviously did not matter to him. Or maybe we'll come to find out he checked the finances here and he wasn't as pleased as like a lot of other people have said regarding the debt and, how lucrative potentially things might be here compared to the Chicago White Sox. But he's got a debt. He's going to have to wait a decade there.
Are they looking for a new ballpark on the north side, too? Aren't they thinking about something?
On the south side.
I'm sorry, the south side.
Yeah, with the White Sox. You might be right about. I don't even remember. I think that might be true too.
Because that one's about 30-ish years old.
Yeah,
right?
The Bears want one. The White Sox want one. I don't know if the Bulls want one. I think United Center is safe for now.
For now.
But yeah, that could change too. So that was an interesting wrinkle I had not noticed, that it's that slow.
It makes ours seem like shotgun and abrupt.
It does.
Slow down, guys.
And it's hurtful because you'd say, well, why wouldn't you want to come here to get the thing done a lot faster? Because it sounds like Reinsdorf is one of those owners who's maybe I will sell, maybe I won't. I've been under pressure to sell, but I kind of like having the toy. I want the option. I want the flexibility. And again, this is drawn out for so long, for basically another decade, but I thought that was interesting. Is it time for the state of hockey in Canada especially to apologize to the state of basketball in Canada? Most of you know, maybe you don't, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP, the reigning MVP of the National Basketball Association, and Lou Dort, the defensive, what do you call him? Stalwart, whatever the case may be. They're both from Canada. Dort was born in Montreal. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is from Hamilton, Ontario. And we were reminded, too, that there are two Canadian Pacers. Did you realize that? Andrew Nembhard and Benedict, I think it's pronounced Mathurin. I think that's how you pronounce it. They also come from north of the border, from Canada. And remember, as I'm sure you do, Dr. James Naismith, does that name ring a bell?
It does. He invented the game.
Do you know where he is from?
I'm going to guess our future 51st state, Canada.
Correct. It's a Canadian. He invented the game in Springfield, Massachusetts, but he was Canadian. So there's a little bit more, of Canada in the game of basketball than perhaps most people realize. And don't forget Steve Nash, Canada's first league most valuable player. That was in, I think, 2005, right? He grew up in Victoria, British Columbia as well. And let me ask you something. Which sport has won a title more recent in Canada? The sport of basketball or the sport of hockey?
That'd be basketball.
I think it'd be the Toronto Raptors.
Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
And Siakam.
And Siakam, that's right. Now, obviously, they have a chance to get it done this year and make some history for the first time in several decades. But maybe it's time we give a little bit, maybe the hockey community needs to give a little more respect to the game of basketball, even north of the border. Oklahoma City is a prohibitive favorite to win. And I don't think anybody would suggest that Shai and Dort are the two best players on the best team. Shai's one of them, and Dort's the best defender, right? Is there any question about that?
No.
And those are significant contributors to a team that might well be starting, I don't want to go too far with the D-word dynasty, but a program that has a chance to stay good for quite some time. They have no salary cap implications for next year. They literally can bring everybody back from this year if they'd like. They have 2 number 1 picks this year.
Yeah.
Now, eventually they're going to have to start paying, right, some of these people, and that's where things kind of get pear-shaped sometimes. But I did not realize that Dr. James Naismith was hailed from Canada.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
You think that would have come up? You think Canada would have trumpeted that more than they have?
Maybe
we've just missed it.
It's possible we've missed it. That's very, very true. But again, NBA title, a lot more recent than the last Stanley Cup in Canada. Now, maybe that's about to change, right?
Signs are good right now for the Oilers.
Got off to a very good start in the opener, winning an OT, but it's a long way from here to there. They haven't done it yet.
I do like that a lot of the good basketball players that have come from there, like Zach Edey, I think, was Canadian as well. He used to play hockey. The 7-footer
right.
Purdue guy.
Yeah, you're right.
Gopher basketball had a guy this year named Frank Mitchell, comes from Canada, played hockey forever, and then realized, you know what, basketball is a pretty good game. They all start on skates somehow. I wonder if Nikhil Alexander-Walker, also Canadian, I wonder if he started out on hockey and then found basketball, or if it was just always basketball.
Well, here's the way they put it in the Wall Street Journal. Take the Montreal-born Dort. If you added a pair of skates and took away a few teeth, he wouldn't look out of place as a hockey enforcer. They quote his high school coach. He does all the intangibles. He makes the important steal. He makes the blockout. He's, I would say, you're diminishing Dort if you refer to him as a hockey enforcer, because a hockey enforcer to me is semi-goonish.
Right.
He's a great defender, right? He's just a great defensive player.
He'd be a shutdown center.
He's a rock, yes.
In hockey. Be a good two-way player.
He'd only be a two-way player, though, so that's what you'd be.
A 200-foot player.
You think he would?
Yes, an honest player.
I'm sure he played some puck back in the day.
You kind of have to, don't you?
Yeah, and I would be surprised, like you said, if Shea didn't. In any case, the story kind of indicates that there are pockets of from Halifax to Saskatchewan in which there's a devoted. There are thousands of devoted Oklahoma City fans.
I'm sure,
largely because of these particular connections, and we're seeing more and more of it. Like I said, these are named players. Now Nash was a former MVP. But now I think you're going to see greater. It sounds like you're going to see some greater numbers rather than just one guy here or there.
Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, that's
our
true.
Our guy, former number one pick, former Timberwolf.
That's true. How'd that work out?
Here, not very well. Elsewhere, pretty good.
C. Holmgren, writes lawyer Thomas from Minnesota, which is basically Canada.
Good point.
Did he ever play hockey? Look at it.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me, did he? You got more connections than I do on that.
I don't know. I don't think he did.
It's telling that Ishbia would rather wait 9 years than put up with little Joey Polat. Maybe it is. It's uncanny. There's a team allegedly dying to be sold.
There's a couple of them, right?
In front of you. And yet, I'll wait another decade to take over the White Sox. The White Sox might not even exist by then.
Well, maybe that's when his house is going to be done. If it's as big as we think it's going to be,
that's true.
With supply chain stuff and tariffs, maybe his house isn't going to be done until 2034. If it's going to be as monstrous as we think it is.
Last time we talked to Richard Pitino on this show, he was the head coach at the University of New Mexico. He ain't anymore. Now he's the head coach at Xavier out of Cincinnati, Ohio. How is he taking to the change of scenery? And what is his connection to the NBA Finals, which start tonight in Oklahoma City? We'll get to all of that with our guy, Richard Pitino. Questions for Richard Pitino, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line 64686. He joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Welcome back to the program. How are you? Richard?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, you are here. Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me. Well,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was a brief introduction. I thought you were going to go through the accolades and everything. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll get to those in a minute. But I don't want to...
NIT champion 2014 or whatever it was.
I don't want to bury... Yeah, but I don't want to bury the lead here. The most important question I have for you is, can your father take the New York Knicks to the NBA Finals next season?
He believes he can. I do know that much. Now, whether he can or not is a different story, but he believes he can coach any team to the NBA Finals. He believes he can win the Super Bowl in football. He's got a great belief and confidence about himself. That's what we love about him.
So now, supposedly, he said to somebody today, I think this has been written in the New York tabloid, so it must be true, that he has no interest. Because his name has come up for the Knicks job, like about 25 other people. He's already there, obviously. He is, he had this incredible resurgence, but that he has said he has no interest in the job. A, do you know that that's true? B, does that surprise you at all?
Well, A, I don't I'm not sure if the interest is mutual. So, that would be the first thing. But no, honestly, it's all pro sports right now. I mean, there's no real difference.
That's true.
To what we're doing and what the NBA does, except there's more of a structure in place in the NBA versus what we have to deal with. So, I do think he's happy at St. John's. I think he's got a good little deal going on right now. He's really enjoying it. And I definitely don't think he's looking to do anything else besides coach St. John's.
Let me ask you a coaching philosophy question, and this might be a hanging curveball for you, and if you want to hit it out of the park, you can. But obviously you know the story. The Knicks get to the conference finals, first time they've gotten that far in, I think, 25 years. Tibbs, though, is one of those guys, wherever he's been, including here, where he has success, there's whispers about, okay, he doesn't modernize enough, he doesn't play enough bench, there's not enough joy in what the team feels like it's doing, etc. But how do you process, as a guy who's been around coaching in the game, obviously, forever, how do you process this sort of thing when, in New York, which you know well, a place where it's kind of been a graveyard for really, like I said, close to 25 years. They have their best success, even though they don't go all the way, and he's out of there. What do you make of that sort of thing?
It's surprising, but it's also not surprising. If you look at their roster, because the NBA, the roster is obviously the most important thing, I would argue that they're not an NBA championship-worthy roster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a Knicks fan. I loved rooting for them. I mean, Jalen Brunson, amazing. The things that they did were phenomenal. But I just, I think a bad marriage in any job is when the expectations don't match kind of the resources or whatever you may have. But the thing about the NBA is really they've got billions of dollars. These are billionaire owners who can do whatever they want. And they won a championship, and for whatever reason, they felt like they fell short. But I'm of the belief that, I don't care if you're smiling, happy, joy, or if you're gruff. At the end of the day, did you win or not? And he did win. He won, I think it was the best year they had in 20-something years.
Correct.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But, it's not surprising by any means. But I guess if you're a James Dolan, if you're a Leon Rose, what do they care? They're going to sell out the Garden every single game. They're going to bring in all this revenue. So it's not affecting their bottom line. So I just believe at the end of the day, they know it doesn't matter what may be deemed insane, crazy decisions, because they know opening night in the Garden, it's going to be sold out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that part's true. Last time we had you on the air, you were still coaching at New Mexico. You are now coaching in the Midwest, back in the Midwest, Xavier, Cincinnati, Ohio. Why did you take that job?
I took the job because of a couple of reasons. Obviously, we all know the landscape is changing drastically. I was concerned at New Mexico because our conference blew up, and a lot of the really good basketball programs are breaking away to go to the Pac-12. New Mexico is being left behind. I really believe the haves, which is the Big Ten and the SEC right now, are really trying to separate from the have-nots. And I was really concerned that the new Mountain West that I was in was going to separate even further from the top. And I felt like the Big East, whenever this House settlement passes, are going to be in a position of strength, which is they don't need to share money with football. So right now, everybody is spending an insane amount of money to build a roster as it pertains to basketball, or whether it is for football. Whenever this House settlement passes, there's going to be a cap of $20.5 million. And Minnesota, specifically speaking, is going to decide how to allocate those money to basically pay for these rosters. And so my concern at New Mexico was, are we going to have the money to compete at the highest level? I also felt like Xavier's traditionally been a basketball program that has always won. It's a little bit closer east for me. I loved my time in Albuquerque. I really did. They treated me great, but I did feel really far away from friends, family, and so on. So I just thought the time was right. And I also felt like it was a magical 4 years for me at New Mexico. I didn't know how much more I could have done, especially with the shifting of all the landscape. And I just felt the time was right. Xavier is the people in the Midwest, although they're not as great as Minnesota because we know they're number one list for everybody.
Yep.
But I felt like just raising a family, the comfort of, I loved my time in Minnesota, and I felt like if I can get a little bit closer east, people think that I want to be like in New York. Like I really don't, just because it's so big and I'm raising a family, but it just felt right. And I thought being in a basketball conference would give us the best position to kind of move forward.
You got, and is there money there for you too, Xavier?
You can always have more, right? And I think the hard part about this whole deal right now is, like I told somebody this today, if you go to Las Vegas and you lost $1,000 and your wife said, how much money did you lose? You would say $500, right? You're never going to tell the truth.
Right.
So there's not a lot of transparency in what everybody is spending. So it's hard to really know, but I just look at it as it pertains to the Big East, much like Minnesota needs to look at as it pertains to the Big Ten, is where are we at in the spending of the payroll of the roster? And I think we're right around in the middle, but I just know as the games start, we're gonna want to be first, right? Just like everybody should want to be first. So I think we got a little catching up to do, but I think I do believe that the Xavier fan base is used to success. They really want to be good. We've got a great on-campus arena that's phenomenal. And we've got a willing fan base and a lot of willing stakeholders who really want to be good.
Yeah, the interesting thing, as you say, it's got a great tradition, a great history, even if a lot of people might not be able to say they know where it is, right? But they know about that school, they know about some tournament successes, etc. Tell me a little bit more about the support in terms of the fans, where that is, where that gets drawn from, and because it seems like it's you do have pretty good support there.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I looked at more than anything was everybody, for the most part, who has coached here has won, right? Yeah. And whether they've won and they've moved on, whether they've stayed, whatever, like, there has been a history of success regardless of who the coach is. And honestly, and I'm not trying to crap on Minnesota because I loved it, but that's different, right? Every coach has kind of had a different type of run at a Minnesota where when I looked at Xavier, I said, okay, everybody's been able to do it. Now, obviously, the profession has changed substantially in the last 3-4 years, but I just felt like, I went to Providence College, small Catholic school. I've always been a Big East guy. I've always loved it. But you don't have a huge alumni base and fan base to pull from. The class, the freshman class coming in is like 800 people, where I don't know what a Minnesota would be. It's got to be thousands. So you're smaller in numbers, but you've got all of them, for the most part, really want men's basketball to be good, where maybe at a Minnesota, some want football to be good, some want hockey to be good, some want wrestling or whatever. There's a million different things to kind of pull from. Where the cool part about here with all the people that I've met is like they remember I was there when we went to the Sweet 16. I was there when we went to the Elite Eight. And they all, similar to Minnesota where they're kind of from here, they come back to live here because it is a good, thriving community. So there's a lot of people that care. We just got to get to them.
So like undergrad enrollment there, what is it, like 5,000, something like that? 5,500 in that range?
It's almost 4,000.
Okay.
And you go on the campus, it's tiny. Now it's pretty beautiful, but it is not a big campus. So it's definitely a different feel from what I've been used to professionally. Because every place I've worked really has been big universities, state schools. So that part of it's definitely different. When you walk into the office, like, you're seeing a lot of different people who are wearing a lot of different hats. So the day-to-day is really different where, Mark Coyle has got a million different sports to worry about where, men's basketball, Xavier, just like at Gonzaga, just like a Villanova, like the university will be affected if we're good. And I think that part of it is exciting for me because I believe that, I want to win. That's the number one thing. But I do believe that the school can grow as the program grows.
All right, so you're pronouncing it Xavier. Is that how you always pronounce it, or did you have to learn that going there? Because a lot of people, say Xavier. So is it Xavier or is it Xavier, or are either okay? Is either pronunciation considered okay at your school?
It would be like me as the Minnesota coach saying, boy, we love Minneapolis. Like, that is, people will hate you forever if you say Xavier. Just like people in the Twin Cities. If you don't say Twin Cities, you're getting emails and everything like that. So for me, yes, that was like rule number one. Do not say Xavier. It is Xavier. Why, I don't know, but that is a big faux pas if you screw that up.
That's what I thought. So obviously your dad, you're going to be coaching more regularly now against him. So sometimes I feel like you have a good sense of humor about that whole bit, but was that in any way like something that might have discouraged you, where you're going to get tired of that, having to deal with, the media jackals bringing up that angle all the time before you guys play, or are you okay with all of that?
I mean, if I thought he was, not to say I think he's going to retire anytime soon, but I do think he's towards the tail end of his career. If I thought me and him were going to have to duke this thing out for like 8 to 10 years, God willing, I still have a job, then I would have probably thought about it a little bit more. But no, listen, I understand the storyline, and I do my very best to be respectful and, answer appropriately and so on. But for me, that didn't even come into play at all. It was more, if I can be in the Big East and I can do this, and okay, for 2 nights out of the year, I got to deal with all the questions, whatever. Yeah. But no, it wasn't really I didn't think about it. That was never going to discourage me from doing what I need to do moving forward. So
we're chatting, obviously, with Richard Pitino. If you don't recognize the voice by now coaching Xavier, formerly at New Mexico. I have not checked your roster. So, everything seems so fluid anyway, whether a coach is leaving or not. So are you still looking for like 8 players? Did a lot of the players who are already there stay, or can you give us some sense of that, the challenges of that whole process?
Yeah, I got the job beginning of April. We did not inherit one player who scored a basket for Xavier.
Wow.
So we kept one kid who redshirted last year. So we're starting from scratch. I got to keep reminding myself of that. So I added 12 players. I signed 12 transfers. One was a high school kid, so 11 transfers and a high school kid. And, I'm sure Nico's dealing with it too. What we look at when we take these jobs is the first question we have to our AD or whoever is, well, what is my budget? What's my payroll? Am I the Dodgers or am I the Oakland A's, right? And what can I spend? That's the reality of this profession right now. And then I'm going to go out and put a roster together with what the limits are of what I'm trying to do. So the good part of the transfer deal is you don't need months and years to recruit a transfer. You need a couple of days. So I do believe in order to do what we're all trying to do, you need retention. My 4 best players last year on our championship team were all kids who were in the program and stayed. Now, you're probably not going to get them to stay for 4 years, but maybe you can get them for 2 or 3. But yeah, no, we added a bunch of new guys, and we had our second practice. I'm still trying to figure out their names. I really am. It's just a different deal, but it's the fun of it too. You can't sit and complain about it. You just tell me what the rules are and let's go.
Another one of the reasons that Gaardsy and I thought about having you on, first I hadn't had you on in a long time, obviously since you made the coaching change, so we wanted to get caught up for that reason alone. But, I was reminded that you happened to spend some time with the Oklahoma City head coach, whose name I think it's pronounced Dagno. I always have trouble with that pronunciation too, where you guys were both at the University of Florida, right? This goes back to 2010, 2011, that period. And so that's a long time ago. But I am curious to get, what your impressions of him then were and sort of your own view on what he, obviously, with, a pretty good front office architect as well, has put together in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it was funny. We were watching the game the other day, and my wife, Jill, who's not really into the NBA by any means, looked up at the TV when OKC was playing. She goes, "Is that Mark? Is Mark the head coach of OKC?" And I laughed about it. But Mark and I worked together for 2 years. Could I have envisioned him coaching the best team in the world? Like, absolutely not. But that doesn't mean I didn't think he was really, really good. But it was interesting. Mark kind of had a role with us in Florida where he wasn't really a coach. He didn't really have like this defined role, but he did have a way about him on a daily basis. He wasn't this, like PJ's, this over-the-top personality in a good way. I mean, there's a lot of positives to that, but he's not going to light up this room when he walks into it by any means. He's more understated, under the radar, but Mark always had a way of just slowly but surely developing trust with everybody. Super analytical and smart, but, very measured with his words in a good way. Deliberate. So I'm not surprised that he is succeeding as a coach. Did I think he'd be succeeding at the highest level this soon? Probably not. But I think and it's a lesson for all of us. There's just a really good marriage with Sam Presti, their GM or whatever his title is, and Mark. And they've got this really good young talent. Mark's got no ego whatsoever, knows the game very, very well. We've spoken often just about some offensive stuff and things he does. But he, when you really break down a game and him coaching in it, he doesn't get rattled by anything. He's got a calm demeanor. He's not consumed with, like he'll work the refs or whatever, but he really does a good job of staying in the moment. He did a great job for us at Florida he was a really good sounding board for Billy Donovan and really helped him with a lot of things. And I think Sam Presti was able to kind of get to Billy through Mark to build some trust and to get Billy to make that move. And, I think Mark's done what he kind of does everywhere else. It's just people believe he can make him better, and he's always done that.
I love this quote Gaardsy found from Dagno. I don't know when he said this. We're not going into the game saying we can't turn the ball over. We don't go into the game saying we've got to turn the other team over. Those are outcomes, just like the final score is an outcome. So offensively, what we want to be really, really well spaced. We want to be sharp in our actions. We want to keep the ball ahead of the defense, and we want to make quick decisions on the catch. It sounds like he's stating the obvious, but that last part especially is part of what impresses me with them. Actually impresses me about the Pacers too is, how do some teams or how do some coaches get teams that are willing to move the ball the way these guys seem to? Is it just about the players, or is it about something that certain coaches can impart?
I think, I texted Mark the other day, and it was half kidding but half serious. I said, "Hey, what's that play call of the play that you ran 98 times for SGA?" Because I want to put it in.
Yes.
And I won't say what the play call was, but I think Mark, I do think this. I think that the roster absolutely lends to that type of play. And Mark's best player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is willing to make the right play. It's impossible for a coach if they have somebody who's ball dominant.
Yeah.
Like a James Harden, not to crap on him. Obviously, he's a great player, but I could see watching him play like, man, that would be challenging to figure out how to put him in the best position, because part of the thing that puts him in the best position, he has got the ball in his hands. So I think Mark's got some superstars that lend to that type of play. So I think it's a perfect marriage of some younger guys, get SGA, Williams, who just, they know like they got to share the ball. So there's definitely, we have day camp right now, and I was talking to our camp today just about, I wouldn't argue that OKC and Indiana have the best players. but they clearly have the most cohesive teams, and it's awesome to see. They both kind of look like college teams.
Yes.
You know, it's not as much ball dominant, and I think that kind of gives hope to a lot of these NBA teams. Like, no, we can win passing the ball, moving the ball. You know, so much of the NBA is 5 out, and it's getting into the paint and then reading what the defense is going to allow you to do. And OKC and Indiana have both done a brilliant job of showing that.
Does he squint so much because he needs glasses? He's always squinting.
So I don't know if you know. Yeah, so I don't know if you know this, and you can look it up. I have made fun of him for years about that. I say, Mark, is there something wrong with your vision? And I will send him gifs all the time of people squinting. And that legitimately, there is an article in the OKC paper like last year about me making fun of Mark for all the squinting. Because I said, hey, can you not see? Do you need to go to the doctor? I'll drive you to the doctor. What is the problem? So that is an ongoing joke for the last 10 years with me and Mark about the squinting. I think it's just like the way that he thinks. He claims he's got amazing eyesight. It's not a vision issue by any means, but it's the way that he thinks. But I was legitimately, if there's one claim to fame as it pertains to Mark Dagnall, was I was by far the first person to call him out for the obnoxious squinting that he does. But obviously it's working well in his favor.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, of course, here with the way they eventually took care of the Timberwolves, unfortunately for the Wolves, in 5 games. Did you get to see much of that series, the Wolves series against Oklahoma City?
I did, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting deal for the Wolves because, you know, Anthony Edwards made the comment after the one game where he didn't shoot a lot that he was making the right play. And I would argue that he probably was. I mean, because he was playing in a crowd like you wouldn't believe. You know, I think for the Wolves, I do think Anthony Edwards is absolutely phenomenal. You know, he's as impressive as a player as I've seen. You know, is it their time right now? I don't know. I think they're probably running into the wrong team in the wrong division at that time. They obviously have just got to figure out how can we go beat OKC. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was an entertaining series. I think Anthony Edwards is as good as advertised. But they got to, it's just like beating the Bulls back in the 90s. They're just going to have to figure out how can we beat OKC because they're not going to stop because they're young and really good. The interesting, what they represent to me is that age-old question of, all right, do we stay the course, you know, let it play out a little bit, stay together, try to tweak a little, or do you say, no, despite the fact that we got to the Final Four, we got to, if we really are serious about the next step, we're going to have to make maybe some changes. And, you know, a lot of the discussion is how hard they might aggressively pursue Kevin Durant, the guy who's clearly going to be traded. It's just a matter to who. And that's always a fascinating question to me, right? Is how to not overreact, but then on the other hand, not stand too pat when you know you actually, to take that last step, you might need to take another risk. It's a great question. You know, the Kevin Durant thing, it's just fascinating because I believe Kevin Durant is one of the best players to ever play this game. But, you know, I believe that if you have a team that goes to the Final Four, like you said, you're not far off. I don't think you're far off. They, in my opinion, obviously I'm not an NBA coach or GM, but they just need to identify with who are the untouchables. Right. Obviously, Anthony Edwards is certainly, you can't do anything with him, but, you know, what can we do with the other one? You know, assets, draft picks, all those things to just nudge it a little more over the top. But I don't think they're far off. If they're going that far, they had a great season. Maybe it's not like they're old, you know, I mean, they're still very young. The great players are very young. You know, so, I mean, it just depends on what kind of, what their power and strength is to move certain guys with contracts and all those things. But I certainly know their GM is well thought of. I love watching Coach Finch. He does a great job. But yeah, I mean, they've got to identify, in my opinion, what will beat OKC and make the moves to do that. Yeah, that's what's interesting because I think originally when Conley came here, the goal was, all right, we got to beat Denver, and he built a team to beat Denver, and they did.
And now it's just that it's shifted a little bit, and now the team to beat obviously has become Oklahoma City. Will you be recruiting the upper Midwest? Will we see you back in the Twin Cities much? I mean, it's that age-old question, can you get more Minnesota players now when you're at Xavier than you did when you're at Minnesota?
My track record over 8 years was not very good at recruiting the state of Minnesota, so I don't know if I'm going to identify that as a good one. Clearly, I'm not good at it. It's funny. I follow all the, read the Star Tribune and the Minnesota stuff.
Yep.
And Gaardsy and I have spoken about it. Like, enough is enough. Who cares? Just get players who help you win games.
Yeah.
Certainly, if they're from Minnesota, great. But the times have changed. These kids are way more transient now than they have ever been. Staying at home and playing in front of their family and friends, it does not matter as much as it once did. They're traveling so much through AAU. They're traveling so much. Every game is on TV. So I know Nico is from there. I spoke with Mark about Nico when the job opened, and not that Mark listens to me, but really endorsed Nico because I was in the league with him, and he's terrific. But just build a team that can help you win.
Yeah.
You got 31 games. Put yourself in a position to make the NCAA. They will not care if you're in the NCAA tournament where the players are from. But certainly, there's great players in that area, so you got to recruit it hard as best you could. And, I actually thought we did a decent job of it. We had back-to-back players out of the state who went to the NBA from the state of Minnesota. But I know, too, that it's important to that community. But I'll dabble with it a little bit. J.P. McCure is on my wall in my office at Xavier, and I always look at him like, damn it, I missed out on that kid. That would have helped a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's obviously some really good players up there.
Great to catch up. I hope you have a terrific summer. Congrats on the new position, and we'll try to stay in touch. Thanks, man, as always.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Much appreciated. Richard Pitino, now the head basketball coach, men's basketball coach at Xavier. Not Xavier, but Xavier, Cincinnati, Ohio. A tiny university that has had a terrific basketball tradition. Men's college basketball tradition, has it not? It's remarkable.
So much so that the guy that he took over for, Sean Miller, won there so big he went to Arizona.
That's true.
Then got fired, went back to Xavier, won so big he's now at Texas.
That's a good point. I forgot about that.
That Mata coach there, I think. Or he might have been Butler. He might have been
Pete
both,
Gillen
actually.
There?
Yes.
Going way back, he was Xavier, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, they really have had a good run. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a short flight from MSP to Cincinnati, by the way, too, for Minnesota kids.
That's a great point. That's not tough at all, is it?
Hub to hub, kind of in the old Northwest Airlines
I think
days.
what he basically told us is he kind of misses the Midwest, or he missed the Midwest.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing is you're on the other end of the country, and you are maybe New Mexico feel a little bit isolated,
Definitely.
You're probably more connected at this point. Good conversation with Richard, as it always is. We always we should do it more often, but I don't want to bug him too much. Plus, I just love talking to him about basketball.
For sure.
The guy's a basketball guy, whether we're talking about college or pro. Top of the hour pause. We got a full half hour yet to come. Some good text to get to. Don't go away. Guy writes, Dan, Gaardsy, Mark here. This Musk versus Trump feud reminds me of when Jock Jones accidentally on purpose stepped on Denny Hawkins' finger in the celebration after the 2002 run when the Twins beat in the playoffs when the Twins beat the A's. That's an interesting analogy.
That's a deep cut.
That's a very deep cut. It's a great callback. I think this one might be a bit deeper and more incendiary. And I'm sensing this one might go on a little bit longer. But I haven't checked the X machine lately. Because the last zinger, I think, was the mic drop one was from Musk playing the how do we describe it? The
Epstein card.
Epstein card. Yeah,
that Trump is in the Epstein
that's it,
files.
and it's just a matter of time till it gets out. Just follow me.
Caitlin Collins, your gal,
yes,
chief
CNN.
White House correspondent and anchor of The Source on CNN. This is 20 minutes ago. The White House responds to Musk saying the Epstein files haven't been made public because Trump is in them, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt telling Sam Waldenberg, quote, This is an unfortunate episode from Elon, who is unhappy with the one big, beautiful bill because it does not include the policies he wanted. The president is focused on passing this historic piece of legislation and making our country great again.
Well, that, we go back. I don't want to go too far back to the beginning, but if you go back to the beginning, part of the suspicion people had about this bromance was exactly that. It was brimming over with potential conflicts of interest, right? And that's why I think there was so little trust in the parts of many that it made any sense to put Musk in such a what at least at that time seemed to be powerful position, right? And maybe in the end, the folks realized that in the administration. He didn't get everything he wanted, but I think it was why there was so little trust on the front end. It was asking for, given all of the connections from a business standpoint that Musk represents, the fact that he's then also suddenly going to be in the government,
right?
Laying in the weeds as a lot of these decisions are at least being mulled over, if not ultimately determined, I think is exactly why it went to that place. We spent some time yesterday with Kessler on the raid that got so much attention in the city of Minneapolis. I guess it was I think there was 8 raids related, according to authorities, with a larger investigation, that this was not necessarily immigration related. There's speaking of battles going on or brawls, verbal brawls going on. There's a quote here via X from Irene Fernando, Hennepin County county commissioner, in which she writes, "It's undeniable. ICE agents were on the scene. Residents are tired of being lied to. I stand with our residents in their pursuit of safety and care. What occurred today is against our shared standard, and the use of military-grade equipment resulted in harm and ER visits." The Hennepin County Sheriff, Sheriff Dewana Witt, has responded to those comments, writing this: "Commissioner Fernando is right that elected officials should not lie to residents. Unfortunately, many did yesterday when they spread misinformation about the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office's role in a search warrant execution, falsely labeling it an immigration raid. This was a criminal investigation. Ms. Fernando and the rest of the county board were sent accurate information about this incident at 1:07 p.m. She never responded before tweeting 4 hours later. There's a difference between human trafficking enforcement and immigration enforcement. We explained this. The search warrants executed across the state today were part of a significant criminal investigation. We're going to continue to enforce laws that affect the public safety of our residents in Hennepin County, documented or undocumented." The moral of the story for me on this thing is I'm hoping we see a lot of really fearless reporting that doesn't follow narratives, but follows the story. Because from this vantage point this early, and that's why I say I think it's actually a little early to completely understand, to get beyond the emotion of the situation. It looks to me like lots of mistakes were made. There was, I think, the Minneapolis police chief used the term tone deafness in the approach that was taken. As I said to Kessler yesterday, I think part of the suspicion that is not particularly surprising that exists has to do with the approach nationally that this administration is, not at the border, but that this administration has taken in many, many cities throughout the United States of America regarding on the immigration part of this story. And that has created, I think, some understandable concern, skepticism, and in some cases, a downright fear that contributed to thinking the worst in this situation. On the other hand, we can't be so tied to a specific line of thinking that we do not have a willingness to follow facts. So if what the sheriff is saying is true, that has to be put under consideration. In other words, I think leaders have a right to be vigilant and to be concerned and to ask questions. But if some of those questions were answered to the degree that in this case the sheriff says were, several hours before a series of tweets continue to get sent out that leaves out the communication that apparently took place to at least explain from the law enforcement standpoint what exactly was going on here, that also needs to be called to account, right? Is that not fair? There should be an accounting of all individuals on whatever side of this particular story you happen to be on, and that's what I fear that we're not going to get. Whether there's going to be an acknowledgement or a willingness to follow the story wherever it might lead, no matter who ends up looking a little bit worse or even potentially a little bit better. But what I think over time we've learned is it takes time to put that story together, right?
Yeah.
Journalistically. And by the way, not everybody's going to agree. There's going to be different interpretations, right, of what was done and how it was done. And I get that. Some things, there's not always certainty to these stories. But I think this must be part of the conversation as well, not just, well, what are you trying to pull? Why didn't you tell more people, et cetera? Because it appears in this case, at least on the sheriff's level, is that there was an attempt to communicate some aspects of exactly what was being done. Now, if you're an elected official and you choose to ignore that information, or you pretend you don't have that information at all, then are you not contributing to part of the problem? You're not necessarily helping to ease the tensions of a situation as that material is brought to your attention. So I hope, as I said, a lot of this stuff is eventually it's being covered in bits and pieces, but I don't know that it's ultimately going to be covered in the way that I would hope, because I think people they draw conclusions on this kind of story. We've seen it time and again, very early, and then it's kind of hard to unravel it and to backtrack from that. And that's my concern in this case as well, because I had not seen all that much. Maybe there have been quotes out there in various newspaper pieces regarding what the sheriff has had to say. And I'll say again, she doesn't have to be the last word, but it's a piece of the story, I think, that has to be told. Don't you believe? Don't you think that has to be part of what's discussed?
There's stories that have to be told, but then also digested.
Well, that's true too. Yeah,
because there's no matter what. Because how many times have we talked about stuff gets reported 2 days?
Yes.
And things go crazy for like 24 hours.
Right.
Like 2 days later, something else gets reported, and we've already moved on to the next thing.
That's
right?
true. We have. That's
so
true.
There's reporting, there's covering, and then there's also the ability for the public to digest it and actually understand what happened, which also doesn't happen very often.
Let's break for our final break of the day. We'll remind you of our highlights from today and what we have coming up on a very special Friday edition. Maybe we'll even call it the Friday Football Beast.
Show Wrap is presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper-to-bumper Show Wrap.
Quite a guest lineup today. Mitch Lawrence joined us at 3:30 to talk NBA Finals and leftover residue from the Tibbs controversy, his dismissal, his unceremonious dumping by the New York Knicks. That was between 3:30 and 4. Lou Ragoose on the Thompson trial that is now, I believe, they think the jury may have wrapped up for the day. I'm not sure if there's an updated report on that, but the two sides have rested in that case, so now the jury is in deliberation. He joined us at 4:15.
No verdict today. Jury has gone home for the night, according to Lou.
Yeah, it is not a sequestered jury. Dr. Dan's Inbox, great contributions from the listeners on a day that might have been dominated a bit by the apparent and rather startling end of the bromance. We've seen sort of signs that it might be going south, but it's exploded into a full-level online brawl between the President of the United States and the man who runs X, Elon Musk, and Richard Pitino on everything, including his move from New Mexico to Xavier and his own connections with the Oklahoma City Thunder and their head coach, Mark Daigneault, who they worked together at the University of Florida for 2 seasons back, I think, 2010-11, in that period of time.
He also went to the Super Bowl here with Tom Thibodeau because Tibbs was coaching the Wolves.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
you were talking about Tibbs.
Yeah. Okay.
Belichick got him the tickets because he's a big Patriots fan from his time out there, his Boston time.
Right.
Said there wasn't. I go, how was it with Tibbs? You know, all those years ago. He goes, well, you'd expect.
What did you expect?
Not a lot of chatter.
Kind of quiet. Yeah.
Not a lot.
That's true.
Watch the game.
People have suggested if Tibbs is, lonely and a little bit bored, how about Tuesdays with Tibbs?
I love
starting next season.
Yeah. Tips Tuesday.
That'd be work. That would work very well.
Thibodeau Thursday.
Yeah, Thibodeau Thursday is another possibility for sure. Tomorrow is Friday, right? So we expect Lavelle on tomorrow's broadcast. Is Lindsay Whalen confirmed for tomorrow, or is that still a maybe?
It's a maybe depending on times.
Okay.
We got to talk times after the show.
All right.
She's available. We just got to figure out times.
The link still, the Roar for 44 continues there. And
it does.
I think New York is still undefeated. They're playing tonight, too, and they're undefeated, too. So something's going to have to give at some point. So maybe Whalen tomorrow, maybe Ben Gessling tomorrow as well. Fan Outdoors is coming up tonight, right? It's Thursday.
Right after us.
Oh, immediately.
6:30 to 8:30 tonight.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They usually go 2 hours?
They do. They used to go 7 to 9.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we tweaked it a while ago, 6:30 to 8:30.
Oh, so no more Fan on Demand in the air between 6:30 and 7.
Not on Thursdays.
Not on Thursdays.
We get right to it.
That's outstanding. So that's coming up next. We hope you enjoyed today's program, and we certainly hope you'll be back tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock. We'll talk then.
Well, see you later.
Is done, we can go home now.
I'll be around.
Okay, have you heard about this? Last year, Degree changed the formula for their Cool Rush deodorant. Their fans rebelled and wanted the old scent back. And Degree listened. That doesn't happen often.
They admitted that they effed up and are bringing the original Cool Rush scent back. And it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. There's a reason it's the #1 men's antiperspirant. And is back in Walmart, Target, and other stores for under $4.
So try it and see what the fuss is about. Head to your local stores to try the OG Cool Rush for yourself.